This also appears to be the case in the other virtues. Here, however, the extremes are seen to be opposed to each other, because the middle is without a name. CHAPTER 5. But mildness is, indeed, a medium conversant with anger. Since, however, the virtue which conducts itself moderately with respect to anger is anonymous, and this is also, nearly, the case with the extremes, we refer mildness to the medium, though it appears to incline rather to the deficiency in anger, which deficiency is anonymous. But the excess may be called a certain angriness. For the passion is anger, but the causes of it are many and various. He therefore who is angry from causes, and with persons with which it is proper to be angry, and farther still, in such a manner as is proper, and when, and as long as it is proper, is praised. Hence, he will be a mild man, since mildness is praised. For the mild man wishes to be without perturbation, and not to be led by passions, but to be angry as reason may ordain in these things, and for as long a time as it prescribes. He appears, however, rather to err in the deficiency with respect to anger. For the mild man is not given to revenge, but is rather inclined to pardon. But the deficiency, whether it be a certain lenity, or whatever it may be, is blamed. For those who are not angry from causes for which it is proper to be angry, appear to be stupid. And this is also the case with those who are not angry as it is proper, nor when it is proper, nor with those persons with whom it is proper, since they appear to be without sensation, and to be void of pain. And also, since they are not angry, they are not inclined to revenge. For it is servile for a man to endure the insolent behaviour of others towards himself, and his own relations. Excess, however, in anger has a manifold subsistence. For it is possible to be angry with persons, and from causes with which it is not proper, and also more and less, and for a longer time than is proper. All these excesses, however, are not inherent in the same person, for it is not possible that they should be. For evil destroys itself, and if it is perfect and entire, is intolerable. Those, therefore, who are irascible rapidly become angry, and with things and from causes with which they ought not to be angry, and also more than is proper. But they quickly cease to be angry, which is a most excellent thing. But this happens to them because they do not restrain their anger, but return an injury as soon as they have received it. Hence, their anger on account of its celerity is manifest, but afterwards they cease to be angry. The extremely irascible, however, are excessively rapid in their anger, and are angry with every thing, and on every occasion, whence also they derive their appellation. But the bitterly angry are with difficulty liberated from anger, and are angry for a long time, for they detain their anger from bursting forth. They cease, however, to be angry when they have taken vengeance on those that angered them. For vengeance appeases anger, producing pleasure instead of pain. But if vengeance does not take place, they are oppressed with a heavy burden. For because the manner in which they are affected is not apparent, neither does any one persuade them to be appeased. Time, however, is requisite for them to concoct their anger. But men of this description are most troublesome to themselves, and to those who are especially their friends. We likewise call those men severe in their anger, who are angry from causes for which they ought not, and in a greater degree, and for a longer time than is proper, and who cannot be appeased without revenge or punishment. To mildness, however, we rather oppose the excess than the defect, for it is more frequent, since it is more human to revenge an injury. Severe men, also, are worse for the purpose of association. But that which we before observed is also manifest from what we now say. For it is not easy to define how, and with what persons, and from what causes, and for how long a time a man should be angry, and also to what extent he may be so rightly, or erroneously. For he who transgresses in a small degree is not blamed, whether he inclines to the more or to the less, since we sometimes praise those that are deficient, and call them mild, and sometimes we call those who are severely angry virile, as being men who are able to govern others. It is not, therefore, easy to explain in words the quantity and mode of transgression which is blameable. For the judgment of this is situated in particulars, and in sense. Thus much, however, is evident, that the middle habit indeed is laudable, according to which we are angry with those persons, and from those causes, that it is proper to be so, and in such a manner as is proper, and every thing else of the like kind. But the excesses and defects are blameable, and these, indeed, if they deviate but a little from the medium, are blameable in a small degree, if more, in a greater degree, and if much, they are very blameable. It is evident, therefore, that the middle habit must be retained, and thus we have discussed the habits pertaining to anger. CHAPTER 6. In the associations, however, of men with each other, and in the communication of words and deeds, some persons appear to be placid and obsequious, who praise every thing with a view to pleasure of those with whom they associate, and are not their opponents in any thing, in consequence of fancying that they ought not by any means to offend them. Others, on the contrary, are adverse to their associates in every thing, and are not at all concerned about whom they may offend, and these are called morose and litigious. That the above mentioned habits, therefore, are blameable, is not immanifest, and also that the medium between these is laudable, according to which a man admits what he ought, and as he ought, and is in a similar manner indignant. No name, however, is given to this medium, but it seems especially to resemble friendship. For he who subsists according to the middle habit is such a one as we wish a worthy friend to be, if he also assumes, in conjunction with it, a love resembling filial love. But it differs from friendship, because it is without passion, and a love resembling filial love towards those upon whom it is exercised. For it does not admit every thing in such a manner as is fit, in consequence of loving or hating, but from a habit of approving or reprehending properly. For he who possesses this habit will be similarly affable to those whom he does not, and to those whom he does know, to his associates, and to those with whom he does not associate, except that to each of these his affability will be appropriate. For it is not fit similarly to pay attention or give pain to familiars and strangers. We have, therefore, universally shown that he will conduct himself in his associations in such a manner as is proper, but referring his actions to the beautiful in conduct and the useful, his aim will be neither to give pain to, nor delight others by obsequiousness. For this virtue appears to be conversant with the pains and pleasures which take place in associations. But when the possessor of this virtue cannot delight his associates worthily, or without injuring them, he is indignant, and deliberately chooses to give them pain, rather than to injure them by obsequiousness. He, also, will not permit another person to be obsequious to him in those things which are attended with no small disgrace or injury, and the contrary, to which produces but little pain, but he will rather be indignant. He will, likewise, associate differently with those who are in a dignified situation, and any casual persons, and with those who are more or less known to him. In a similar manner also in other differences he will attribute to every one what it is fit for each person to receive. And he will, indeed, choose to give delight to others as a thing of itself eligible, but will cautiously avoid giving them pain. And with respect to events, if they are greater, he will follow them. I mean, he will follow the beautiful in conduct, and the advantageous. And for the sake of great pleasure afterwards, he will give pain in a small degree. Such, therefore, is the middle character, but he is without a name. With respect, however, to those who delight others, he who aims at pleasing, and nothing else, may be called accommodating. But he who does this in order that he may derive some pecuniary advantage, or such things as are procured through money, is a flatterer. And he who is indignant with every thing, we have already said is morose and litigious. The extremes, however, appear to be opposed to each other, because the medium is anonymous. CHAPTER 7. The medium of arrogance also is nearly conversant with the same things, but this medium, likewise, is anonymous. It will not, however, be foreign from the purpose to discuss such like habits. For by discussing each particular